Hi, I'm Dago, a future game developer. Today we're on part 4 of Fazbear Fight development.
Now we'll integrate the camera, and even though I did this quite a while ago, I'll now make sure they follow both characters, like in typical fighting games, because currently the camera is completely fixed and only shows the center of the stage, and it doesn't imply the image size is double the camera. But first, before I start modifying the camera node, I want to center the background image to the camera itself, aligning it with the resolution frame. For the 2D camera node, I would use the visible resolution edges, adjusting them so both fit perfectly. And for the stage, I would use the center of the new camera to align it with the resolution. I can simply center objects by setting their position to 0, like in other engines, because Godot, instead of having it center at the center, places it in a corner. But luckily, nodes don't have this limitation, perfectly accommodating the image. And now that everything is in its place, we can start with the camera, creating a script to manage all its parameters. And for this, we'd need a rather large code to perform several actions. The first step is to open a menu for the camera node, where we'll place player 1 and 2. Now the camera knows which objects, that is the players, it needs to follow. And with this, we can use the following settings. The first is follow speed, which controls the camera's speed, and if you set it to a low number, like 1, it will take longer to follow the players, giving an effect that I personally like, but I'm not sure if it truly impacts the final outcome. The next option is the maximum distance between the two players. Almost all fighting games have this, a point of distance that they cannot go beyond. This is so that they don't move out of the camera's view. And if you want to move further left, both must move in that same direction, because if one stays still, the camera remains completely static. I configure the script so that only the x-axis moves, meaning left to right, ignoring the y-axis, which controls up and down. The last two settings are the camera's limits, and if I set an incorrect number, the camera would go past the stage or not show it completely. So I would have to set a number close to the image's edge and configure it until I reach the exact pixel. Not a centimeter less, not a centimeter more, right on the edge. For the left, it'd be -2, and for the right, 1919. For now, the camera's movement is working perfectly. The screw up is how the Freddy's interact with this edge. The first and most obvious thing is Freddy doesn't stop at the edge. He keeps his walking animation even without moving. And while this error doesn't bother me much, the second one does, because if both Freddys walk in opposite directions at the same time, for some reason the Freddy on the left would drag the camera and the other bear. And to fix this error, I wouldn't only have to modify the camera script, but also Freddy and the base character, so their speed becomes 0 when they reach the maximum distance limit between the two characters, fixing the walking animation error and Freddy moving the entire camera. And although this might not seem like it, since this is a development summary skipping the failed attempts, actually doing this took me quite a long time, but it doesn't matter. Now that we're done with the camera, let's move on to the game's resolution. First, let's make the screen full size, removing the gray borders at the top and bottom. This is because my game's native resolution is 1080 and my monitor is 900, causing this border, or so I believe. Honestly, I'm struggling to understand how to configure this. First, I'd like to remove the taskbar and the top bar while the game runs. I'd go to project settings in the Windows section and set the mode to maximize to full screen. But now the gray part, which is the empty space of the Godot interface, is more noticeable. And now to make it fill the entire screen, in the stretch settings, I'd use a viewport, and for the aspect, I'd set it to fill. This would make it fill the entire monitor, leaving no empty space. And although the final project will be more or less like this, I'd put the bars back to make it more comfortable during game development. I'm letting you know the game always had this, but I removed it with screenshots and video editing. Now let's modify the Freddy's view. Normally in fighting games, character views depend on the other player's position, always facing each other and never turning their backs. For now, the sprite turns based on where Freddy is walking, not where his enemy is. So let's change this, modifying where Freddy's script is. Now every frame Freddy gets the global information of his opponent, compares it with his position on the stage, and based on this there are two options. In case A, if the opponent is on the right, the sprite scale will be 1, positive, and Freddy will face right. In case B, if the opponent is on the left, meaning -1, Freddy will be horizontally flipped and look left. Now the character's view will depend on the other player's position, like in all 2D fighting games. And although this is a great advance, the hitbox also needs to react to changes, since the weak hits hitbox always faces right, regardless of Retro Freddy's track. But that's really not very complicated to fix. Practically, you just need to implement the same logic as the sprites, setting it to negative or positive, depending on the second player's position. Anyway, this is the end of the video. Here's the full Fazbear Fight dev video series, and here's the subscribe button. I really recommend it. That's all for now. Ciao!